The kitchen was filled with the warm aroma of garlic and herbs, but instead of feeling excitement, a tight knot of restlessness churned in my stomach. I stood by the counter, watching Ethan move with confidence as he stirred the sauce. He hummed softly, lost in his world of cooking, while I felt like a stranger in my own home. What was meant to be a special dinner felt more like a chore, a task I had to complete to keep up appearances. "Lila, can you set the table?" Ethan called over his shoulder, breaking my trance. His voice was cheerful, but for me, it only highlighted the growing distance between us. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, I was screaming for something different, something more than this routine that had become my life. As I placed the plates on the table, memories flooded my mind. Just a few years ago, we were newlyweds, our laughter filling the rooms of this house. I loved those moments, the spontaneity, the thrill of being in love. Now, it felt like we were just two people coexisting, trapped in a cycle of daily chores and predictable conversations. "What do you want to do this weekend?" I asked, trying to spark some excitement. Ethan looked up, his brow furrowing slightly. "I don't know. Maybe catch a movie? We could go to that new Italian place afterward." His answer came easily, but it felt rehearsed. I could see it in his eyes. He was content. But was I? "Yeah, sounds good," I replied, but my heart wasn't in it. I glanced at Ethan, his focus back on the simmering pot, and I couldn't help but wonder if the love we once shared had faded into a comfortable but dull existence. Was it too late to seek something more exhilarating? Doubt crept in, wrapping around my thoughts like a vine. How did we get here? I remembered the spark in our early days, the way we used to explore the city together, hand in hand, dreaming of our future. Now, we were both just here. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, mingled with a strange sense of longing. Ethan turned off the stove and called me over. "Dinner's ready. Come taste this." He ladled the sauce over the pasta, his eyes shining with pride. I approached the table, trying to muster genuine enthusiasm. "It looks amazing," I said, even though my heart was heavy. As we sat down, I forced myself to focus on the meal, but my mind wandered. What about those dreams I had, the ambitions I used to chase? I felt trapped in a box, and the walls were closing in. Was there a way out? "Lila, is everything okay?" Ethan asked, concern lacing his voice. I looked up, startled. "Of course, just thinking," I replied, my voice lacking conviction. Ethan smiled, but I could see the shadow of worry on his face. "What are you thinking about? Work? Family?" He probed gently. I hesitated. The truth stuck in my throat. How could I explain this restless feeling, this craving for something beyond our predictable life? "Just us, I guess," I finally said, my heart racing. Ethan nodded, his expression softening. "I know things can feel routine. We can always find new things to do together. Maybe a trip somewhere?" His suggestion was well-meaning, but it felt like a band-aid on a deeper wound. I smiled, appreciating his effort, but the question lingered. Was that enough? After dinner, I helped him clean up, but I couldn't shake the feeling of incompleteness. I wanted to scream, to break free from this monotony. But how? As I washed the dishes, I stared out the window, searching for answers in the night sky. Was it too late to chase after something new? Something exciting? As I looked at Ethan, his back turned towards me, I couldn't help but wonder if I was ready to shake things up, or if I would always be this restless woman in a perfect life. The lights shone brightly at the culinary event, illuminating the bustling crowd. As I walked through the vibrant atmosphere, I could smell the mix of spices and herbs wafting through the air. It should have felt exciting, but instead, I felt a twinge of anxiety. I was here to enjoy the evening, but my mind kept drifting back to the restlessness I felt at home. Then I saw him, Marco. He stood behind a table, gracefully slicing tomatoes with a skill that made it look like art. His dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, and his hands moved with confidence. I felt a sudden pull towards him, a curiosity that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Would you like to try a sample?" Marco asked, looking up and catching my eye. His voice was warm and inviting, like a sunbeam breaking through a cloudy day. "Yes, please," I replied, feeling a smile creep onto my face. As he handed me a small plate of bruschetta, our fingers brushed ever so slightly. A spark ignited, and I felt something I hadn't felt in ages: excitement. "Do you cook?" he asked, leaning in slightly. His interest was genuine, and I found myself wanting to share more than just my culinary skills. "I used to," I admitted, my heart racing. "But lately, I've been more of a spectator in the kitchen." "Ah, that's a shame. Cooking is a way to express yourself," Marco said, his eyes twinkling. "What do you love to eat?" I paused, thinking about the meals Ethan and I prepared together, the laughter we shared while cooking. "I love Italian food. It has so much flavor and passion," I answered, almost shyly. "Then you should definitely try making pasta from scratch. It's a game changer," Marco replied, his enthusiasm infectious. "I can show you how sometime." As we chatted, I felt the warmth of his words wrapping around me like a cozy blanket. We shared stories about our favorite dishes and where we found inspiration. The laughter flowed easily between us, and I felt a thrill I hadn't experienced in years. In that moment, I realized how deeply I craved connection, not just through food, but with someone who understood the passion behind it. "Do you have a favorite dish to cook?" I asked, intrigued by his fiery spirit. "Risotto. It requires patience and attention, but when it's done right, it's pure magic," Marco replied, his eyes lighting up. "Like love, you know? It needs time to develop." His words struck a chord within me. I thought about my own life, how I had let my marriage settle into a comfortable routine. Was I ready to embrace the magic of something new? "Maybe you can teach me how to make it," I suggested playfully, feeling bold. "Absolutely. Just promise me you won't rush it." He winked, and I felt my cheeks warm. As the night went on, I found myself drawn to him even more. The way he spoke about food was filled with passion, a stark contrast to the predictability I felt at home. I wanted to know more about him, to feel that spark of excitement again. "Lila," he said, his tone shifting slightly as he leaned closer. "What do you truly seek in life?" I hesitated, the question hanging in the air. I had never thought about it so directly. "I don't know," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I guess I want to feel alive again." "Then you should allow yourself to explore that feeling," Marco encouraged, his gaze unwavering. "Life is too short for dull moments." His words echoed in my mind, and I felt a wave of longing wash over me. I was tired of the monotony, tired of simply getting by. I wanted adventure, passion, something that made my heart race. As the evening drew to a close, I realized that meeting Marco was a turning point. He had awakened something within me, a desire I thought I had lost. I left the event with a mix of excitement and confusion, wondering if I was ready to step into a world of flavors and emotions that I had buried for too long. As I walked through the door of the cozy little bistro where Marco and I had decided to meet again, my heart raced with excitement and dread. The air was filled with the rich aroma of garlic and fresh herbs, and I felt a thrill run through me as I spotted him at a corner table. Marco was leaning back casually, a playful smile lighting up his face when he saw me. "Lila, you made it!" he exclaimed, standing up to greet me with a warm embrace. His touch sent a spark through me, igniting a fire I had long thought extinguished. "Of course," I said, trying to sound casual. but my voice trembled slightly. I wouldn't miss this for the world. The truth was, each time I met Marco, I felt a mix of joy and guilt. I was betraying Ethan, the man who had always been there for me. Yet here I was, drawn into Marco's world of vibrant flavors and excitement. As we settled into our seats, I couldn't help but admire the way Marco spoke about food, his eyes shining with passion. "You know, cooking is like love," he said, leaning forward. "You have to pour your heart into it. Otherwise, it's just bland." I found myself laughing, but his words stuck with me. Was my life with Ethan bland? Had I stopped pouring my heart into our marriage? "I think I've forgotten how to cook with my heart lately," I admitted, feeling vulnerable. "Then let's change that," he said, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "How about we try making a dish together next time? Something that makes you feel alive." The idea thrilled me, yet a weight settled in my chest. What would it mean to bring Marco into my daily life? I was already stepping over lines I never thought I would cross. "I'm not sure if that's a good idea," I replied, my voice cautious. "Why not?" Marco leaned back, crossing his arms. "You deserve to feel alive, Lila. You deserve to have fun. This is not just about food. It's about rediscovering yourself." His words echoed in my mind as we shared more laughter and stories over delicious plates of pasta. I could feel the thrill of our connection growing stronger with every moment. Yet, as the evening progressed, so did the gnawing guilt in my stomach. I thought of Ethan, waiting at home, blissfully unaware of my secret life. "Do you ever feel guilty about what we're doing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Marco paused, studying me. "Guilt is a heavy burden, but sometimes we have to make choices that feel right for us. Life is too short to live in fear of our desires." Anduri, his words resonated with me, but they didn't erase the weight of betrayal I felt. I was torn between the thrill of being with Marco and the love I had for Ethan. "But what about Ethan?" I asked, my heart aching. "He trusts me." Marco's expression softened, and he reached across the table, taking my hand. "You have to ask yourself what you truly want. It's not easy, but you owe it to yourself to seek happiness." His touch sent a shiver down my spine, and for a moment, I considered what it would be like to embrace this new life fully. But then, the image of Ethan's warm smile flashed in my mind, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "I don't know if I can keep doing this, Marco," I confessed, pulling my hand away. "Every time I'm with you, I feel alive, but then I remember Ethan. I don't want to hurt him." Marco sighed, his eyes reflecting a mix of understanding and frustration. "I get it, Lila, but you have to choose for yourself. You can't keep living this double life. It's tearing you apart." His words echoed in my mind as I left the bistro that evening, my heart heavy with the weight of my choices. The thrill of my secret rendezvous was intoxicating, but the guilt that followed was suffocating. I felt like I was standing on a precipice, looking down into the unknown, wondering how far I was willing to fall in search of something more. As I stood in the kitchen, the aroma of simmering garlic and herbs filled the air, wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. I was preparing dinner for Ethan, but instead of feeling excited, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. Memories of our early days together played in my mind, moments filled with laughter and love. Yet, alongside those memories, a heavy feeling of guilt crept in, reminding me of my secret encounters with Marco. I glanced at the clock, trying to push away the thoughts that clouded my mind. Ethan would be home soon. He always came home at the same time, just like our routine. I stirred the pot absent-mindedly, my thoughts drifting to the wild passion Marco ignited in me. "Hey, Lila, what smells so good?" Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts as he entered the kitchen, his smile warm and inviting. Just some pasta with a fresh tomato sauce, I replied, forcing a smile. Thought I'd try something a little different tonight. That sounds amazing. You always know how to make dinner special, he said, moving closer to me. His hand brushed against mine, and I felt a flicker of warmth, but it quickly faded. The contrast between his love and the thrill I felt with Marco was like night and day. As I set the table, I felt my heart sink. Ethan, I started hesitantly. Do you ever think about us? About what we used to be? Ethan paused, his brow furrowing slightly. Of course I do. Why do you ask? I don't know. I just feel like things have changed. Like we've fallen into a routine. I looked down at the plates, unable to meet his gaze. Sometimes I wonder if we're missing something. He stepped closer, concern etched on his face. Lila, we've built a life together. It's normal for things to feel stable, but that doesn't mean we can't find excitement in other ways. His words hung in the air, and I felt a mix of comfort and longing. I wanted to believe him, but my heart was still torn. The connection I felt with Marco was intoxicating, yet here was Ethan, standing in front of me, full of love and understanding. Do you think we could ever have that spark again? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan smiled softly, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. I believe so. We just have to find ways to reconnect. Maybe we can go on a trip, just the two of us? The idea sounded wonderful, yet all I could think of was Marco's laughter and the thrill of our secret meetings. I felt a pang of guilt as I thought about how I would betray Ethan's trust again if I went on that trip. I'll think about it, I said, forcing a smile. Let's just enjoy dinner tonight. As we sat down to eat, I tried to focus on the moment. We talked about work and our plans for the weekend, but I felt distant, as if I were floating above the table, watching us from afar. My mind was racing, torn between the safety of Ethan's love and the wild adventure Marco offered. Lila, is everything okay? Ethan asked, concern creeping into his voice once more. You seem a bit lost. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm fine. Just thinking. About what? He pressed gently. About life, I guess. About what I want. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Ethan reached across the table, taking my hand. You know you can tell me anything, right? I want us to be happy. His touch was warm, grounding me, but I felt the weight of my secret pressing down on me. I know, Ethan. I feel torn. Torn? He repeated, confusion in his eyes. What do you mean? I hesitated, the truth stuck in my throat. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess my heart's desires, but fear held me back. It's nothing, really. Just some silly thoughts. Lila, please. I can see something is bothering you. You don't have to hide from me. The emotional turmoil inside me reached a boiling point. I wanted to scream, to cry, to let all my feelings out. But instead, I smiled weakly, hoping he wouldn't push me further. The safety of his love felt like a warm embrace, but the thrill of adventure was calling me louder than ever. As we finished dinner, I knew I would have to face the truth eventually. My heart was a battlefield, caught between the comfort of home and the excitement of the unknown. And no matter how much I tried to ignore it, I couldn't escape the reality that my choices would define my path forward. As I stood in the dim light of my kitchen, the air heavy with the scent of the evening, my heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. I had made a choice, and now it was time to face the truth. The thrill of my secret life with Marco clashed violently with the reality of my life with Ethan. I could no longer hide in the shadows. After a passionate encounter with Marco, I felt electric, yet guilt gnawed at me as I drove home. My thoughts raced. Was this worth it? I glanced at the clock. It was late, but Ethan would still be awake. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. As I entered the house, the familiar warmth enveloped me. Ethan was in the living room, reading a book. He looked up and smiled, his eyes lighting up the room. "You're home late, Lila. Everything okay?" I forced a smile, but my heart sank. "Yeah, just lost track of time." He set his book aside and stood up, concern etched on his face. "Did you have a good time?" I hesitated, the weight of my secrets pressing down on me. "It was different. I met some interesting people." Ethan stepped closer, his warmth comforting yet suffocating. "I'm glad you're expanding your horizons. You deserve that." His words were kind, but they felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I couldn't hold back any longer. "Ethan, we need to talk." His brow furrowed with worry. "About what? Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding like a drum. "It's about us. About me." "Lila, you're scaring me." "What's wrong?" His voice was soft, filled with concern. I looked into his eyes, searching for the right words. I've been feeling lost, and I've done things I shouldn't have." Ethan's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "What do you mean? What have you done?" I felt the heat of shame wash over me. "I've been spending time with someone else. Someone who makes me feel alive in ways I haven't felt in years." His face fell, and the pain in his eyes was like a punch to my gut. "Lila, how could you do this to us? To me?" Tears sprang to my eyes, and I struggled to find my voice. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I felt trapped, and he made me feel seen again. "But I love you, Ethan. I really do." "Do you?" His voice trembled, and the hurt in his eyes cut deep. "How can you say you love me when you've betrayed me like this? I know it's wrong. I know I hurt you. But I'm trying to understand what I want. I'm torn between the safety of our life and the thrill of something new." Ethan shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. "So this is what you want? A life filled with secrets and lies?" "No, I don't want lies. I want honesty. I want to figure out if I can still be happy with you." My voice cracked, and I took a step closer, desperate for him to see the truth in my heart. He looked away, his pain palpable. "I don't know if I can trust you anymore, Lila. You've shattered everything we built together. I know, and I can't change what happened, but I want to try. I want to fight for us if you're willing to let me." My heart raced as I spoke, each word heavy with the weight of my emotions. Ethan's silence stretched between us, a chasm of hurt and confusion. Finally, he looked back at me, his expression softer, but still guarded. "I need time to think, Lila. This is a lot to process." "I understand," I whispered, feeling the distance grow. "I'll wait. I just hope you can see that I'm still here, wanting to fight for our love." As I turned away, tears spilled down my cheeks. I knew I had to face the consequences of my choices, but the thought of losing Ethan felt like losing a part of myself. The future lay before me, uncertain and daunting, and I could only hope that it would lead to healing, whether together or apart. Sitting on the edge of our bed, I stared at the wall, my mind racing with thoughts I could no longer ignore. The sun had set, casting shadows that danced across the room, mirroring the turmoil within me. I could still feel the warmth of Marco's kiss on my lips, a stark reminder of the thrill I had sought. But now, as I faced the reality of my choices, that warmth felt more like a burn. Ethan had gone out for a walk, giving me a moment alone to unravel the knots of guilt and desire in my heart. I took a deep breath, searching for clarity amidst the chaos. What had I done? I had crossed a line I once thought unbreakable, and now I stood at a crossroads, unsure of where to turn. Lila? Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts as he stepped back inside, a soft smile on his face. I brought us some ice cream. Want to share? I forced a smile, trying to mask the storm brewing inside me. Sure, that sounds nice, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. He handed me a bowl, and as I took a spoonful, I felt the coldness seep through my body, contrasting with the heat of my emotions. Everything okay? He asked, concern flashing in his eyes. You seem a bit distant. I looked down, stirring the ice cream as if it could mix away my confusion. Just thinking about life, I said, trying to keep it vague. I didn't want to burden him with the weight of my secret. He nodded, his expression softening. Life can be overwhelming sometimes. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. His words struck a chord. How could I talk to him about the joy Marco brought me when all I would do is hurt him? I swallowed hard, feeling the guilt twist in my stomach. Thanks, Ethan. I appreciate that. Ethan's presence was a comfort, but it only deepened my internal conflict. I loved him, yet a part of me craved the excitement Marco offered. The realization hit me like a wave. I had to face this truth head on. I needed to understand what I wanted, even if it meant hurting the person I cared about the most. Lila, you're lost in thought again, Ethan said gently, pulling me from my spiral. What can I do to help? I hesitated. The words stuck in my throat. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess my infidelity, but fear held me back. I don't know what I want anymore, I finally admitted, my voice trembling. What do you mean? He asked, concern flooding his features. I took a deep breath, the weight of my secret pressing down on me. I feel like I'm caught between two worlds. I love you, Ethan, but there's this part of me that feels unfulfilled. He stared at me, his eyes searching mine for answers. Unfulfilled how? Is there something I'm missing? I bit my lip, the truth clawing its way to the surface. It's not about you, it's about me. I've been feeling restless, and I thought maybe a change would help. Ethan's expression shifted, a mix of sadness and confusion. Are you saying you want to leave? To find something else? No, I exclaimed, panic rising in my chest. I don't want to leave you. I paused, my mind racing for the right words. I just need to figure things out. He nodded slowly, hurt flickering in his eyes. I understand, but please, don't shut me out. I want to help you through this. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never meant for any of this to happen. His gaze softened, yet the pain was evident. I just need you to be honest with me. Whatever it is, we can face it together. As I looked into his eyes, I realized that honesty was my only path forward. I had to reconcile my desires with the love I felt for him. But the road ahead was uncertain, and I knew that every choice would carry weight. I will. I promise, I said, wiping my tears. I just need time to sort through this. As the ice cream melted in our bowls, I understood that true passion could come at a cost. The consequences of my heart's desires lingered like an uninvited guest, and I had to learn to live with that truth, no matter how painful it might be. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a moment of unexpected change that transformed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more captivating stories like this one.